Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg here in Las Vegas. Good morning, Hank.
Hi, Jim. How you doing?
Man, it's been busy. All these baseball games all day, and the Lakers did a job on the Heat last night. And we got some baseball today. We got football tonight, if you can call it that. And they've got a big card on the weekend, college and pro. We've got our first COVID cancellation in the NFL, which is kind of depressing. I hope that doesn't continue, but you probably know it will. We got a lot to talk about. You want to talk about tonight's game, or you want to just go by it?
Rippon is the third different starting quarterback for Denver, and the Jets are terrible. They don't have any receivers who are healthy, and their defense is shot, and I think this may be Gase's last week.
Well, I hope it is, because I'd like to see Darnold get some good coaching and some stability. I mean, the kid has a lot more talent than, let's say his talent has been at a higher level than the coaching he's been receiving. And a lot of times that happens. A good player will come into the league and not get the right kind of coaching or situation, and it'll ruin their career. So.
Well, they seem to think he's going to be all right in the long run, but nobody wants to play for this guy. It was a big mistake hiring him.
Correct. Well,
and if you want an example of a quarterback who succeeded after he got away from Gase, look at Tannehill.
That's right. He's done very well. It was a bad hire. You're right. It was a terrible hire. Anything in the NFL or baseball what would you like to focus on?
Baseball. The Yankees came through yesterday after it looked like they were going to blow that game. With their bullpen. They've got the one closer who's good, but their bullpen puts them in trouble, which could hurt them later on. But, they score a lot of runs, and they're hot right now. I know they lost their last 4 games, but prior to that, they had won 9 straight. And they're healthy, and their defense is good. So, I'm looking forward to their next series, and we'll see how that goes. But I had the Yankees in their series, and I had Houston in their series. I got a nice price on them.
Yeah,
those 2 series ended in a hurry.
They sure did. The Yankees will be going up against the Tampa Bay Rays, and that's you got all the power of the Yankees, and you got some great pitching on the Rays. So it's going to come down to that factor right there. Of course, the Rays did a good job. They won the regular season East. But the Yankees just don't seem to be able to put the pitching staff together. They've had some injuries, but Cole pitched really well the other night.
Well, he's really good.
Yes, he is. He had that little slump where 3 games where he didn't quite get it going, but for the most part, he's been very solid. He's a hell of a pitcher, no question.
Well, the starting pitching is fine. It's their bullpen that gets them in trouble.
We got a few games today. Are any of them in baseball? We got yesterday, Cincinnati and Atlanta went 13 innings. Cincinnati had so many people on base, and they couldn't get a run across. I think they had 12 people on base and never got anybody in.
They set a record for walks in the game.
They probably set a record for strikeouts too.
Well, they set a record for walks.
Wow.
No probably about it. That was the record that was set for a postseason game.
Wow. The Monday night game was interesting where the Chiefs, for some reason, the world thinks the Ravens are a better team than the Chiefs. They made them a 3.5-point favorite when the points. I mean, usually home field is not that strong this year without fans. That was a big price for the Ravens over the Chiefs.
Well, everybody picked them too. But the bottom line with the Ravens is that their quarterback can't play coming from behind because he has no downfield passing game. He can't throw the ball downfield with any accuracy. And so a good defense and a smart coach is going to jam up, the first 10 yards and shut him down. And that's happened to him before. When he gets up against a real good team, he flunks. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem with him. Has been right along.
Yeah, in the last 2 years in the playoffs, he's really stubbed his toe, and there was another big game the other night, and he stubbed his toe again.
He didn't have 100 yards.
I know. Yeah, they're definitely overrated in the odds makers' eyes. I guess the public's eyes too, because they keep betting them. But big game.
Well, they had looked very good the first two games this year, and he had played very well. And they played against Houston. They crushed them. But I'm interested to see what Kansas City does this week against New England. And I think that Kansas City's defense, the other thing about that game, and another reason why Baltimore was favored, was that Kansas City should have lost the week before. Against a very average, at best, Charger team. And if Coach Lynn had gone for a 4th down and 2, they would have lost that game on the West Coast. So they're coming east off a West Coast game they should have lost. And that's why Baltimore was favored in the game.
Yeah, that's true. The Chiefs did not play well in that game, and they were the benefit of the other coach making a little bit of a mistake there.
Huge mistake. You don't give the ball to Mahomes, in the last, when there's that last opportunity for the last drive. You just don't do that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's the one guy one of the few guys in the league you absolutely don't want to give him the ball, like Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes. You don't want to give them the ball with a chance to win the game. You just got to figure out a way to keep it out of their hands.
Mahomes never fails in that situation.
Speaking of Russell Wilson, I mean, he's had a hell of a year. 14 touchdowns in 3 games, and they cross country this week, and they go down to Miami, your old home state and city. And Miami had a little extra rest coming off the Thursday game when they beat Jacksonville, which is, of course, no big shakes. But, the one thing about the defense for Seattle has been giving up an awful lot of passing yards. Not a very good defense, but their offense has been prolific.
Yeah, that's the thing. Of course, they played a very good offense, and with the Cowboys, but their defense has not been good this year, and they don't do well against the running game, and they have not been. They got a couple of good defensive players, but they're not deep in the secondary on defense, but as long as Wilson keeps throwing the ball, and they got the good running game going for them, and they've got great receivers. So
you sure do.
Their offense is carrying them.
It's very strong. Are there any games this weekend that jump out at you that you like to talk about?
Well, I'm very curious to see what Buffalo is going to do this week. Coming off a game that they should have lost, and now they're going to travel across the country to play a Las Vegas team that, despite the offensive line injuries, the replacements in their offensive line have not done a bad job of protecting the quarterback. Las Vegas has a very good running game. And Buffalo, if they have a weakness, it's against the run. Of course, two of their linebackers have been playing hurt. And this is a game that's a perfect letdown situation for Buffalo because they're coming off a big win. And next week they've got another tough game. And they're coming into a very tough part of their schedule. So this is a game where they might actually take a week off. They've got the Rams really should have beat them last week. They got the benefit of a very questionable call, and Goff had a pretty good game. He threw for 320 yards against their defense, and Allen is good. He's thrown for a lot of touchdowns. He's got Diggs. But this is going to be a very competitive game because Las Vegas is well coached. And, last week they went into New England and Belichick found a way to shut down Waller, who was having a huge year. So I'm interested to see that game. There are two teams that broke long losing streaks last week. Detroit somehow beat Arizona. But I don't think Murray is going to throw 3 interceptions again this week. And despite the interceptions, he threw for over 300 yards. Detroit's a bad team. They have no defense. They have no pass rush. They have no coverage in their secondary. Somehow they got those 3 picks on mistakes by Murray. And before that game last week, I think they had lost 11 straight. And so I think Detroit's going to be up against with New Orleans because New Orleans now has, their all-star receiver back this week, and Kamara's unbelievable. Last week, I think he wound up with almost 200 yards, and I think on defense, New Orleans has Jordan, who will give Detroit a lot of trouble. I think Detroit's going down this week for sure. And the other team that has overcame a long losing streak was Carolina, which had a 10-game streak ended last week when they was the benefit of the mistakes by what they played last. Who was it?
The Chargers.
The Chargers. I'm sorry. So. Anyway, Carolina, they have Bridgewater is good, but they have no running game whatsoever, and they all his passes are short. He has no long passing game. They can't run the football at all. He has a 74% completion average, only 2 touchdowns, only 2 touchdown passes. That's not very good. And I think they go back to their losing ways again this week against an Arizona team that, Fitzgerald is probably going to come back after doing nothing last week. So if you got Larry Fitzgerald and Isabella to go with Hopkins and the running of Drake, Arizona's offense is going to be much too much for Carolina. Those are 2 losing teams going back to their losing ways.
Yeah, you're right. Arizona's loaded on the offensive side. And they didn't play particularly well last week. The Panthers are definitely.
Well, he threw for over 300 yards last week, but he threw 3 picks, which is not like him.
Right. Yeah, the Panthers. I mean, they have new coaching. They got Bridgewater, who's the first year there, and they lost their running back, which
I think Bridgewater is decent. I think he's fine, but he doesn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah, they go up, they can march down the field and they kick field goals. They don't get in the end zone like you mentioned. And that, of course, losing McCaffrey didn't help them at all. He was a great player.
No, he was their running game.
Yes, he was. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys pretty well make up the NFC East. And Philadelphia's playing terrible. Dallas has played some decent football. They almost beat the Rams. They almost beat Seattle. Now they're going up this week they're going to go against Cleveland. And I don't think anybody really knows what Cleveland is yet. They have two good running backs. They got wide receivers that are very talented. Baker Mayfield's a question mark. A lot of people wonder whether he's going to develop. And this is a big game for Dallas. I mean, they're 1-2 on the season. And it doesn't look like they're going to have much trouble winning the NFC East because Philadelphia is in such bad shape, and of course the Giants and Washington are terrible.
Washington's going to come on this year as the season goes on. They're young. They're going to improve because they have good coaching. But the thing with Dallas is that Cleveland is going to go in there and they're going to run the ball. They have to. They got to try to keep the ball out of Prescott's hands because their defense will not be able to handle. They can't get into a shootout with Dallas. So I think you're going to see Cleveland try to run the ball as much as they possibly can because Dallas is injured at the linebacker position in the key spot. And so this is where they're weak on defense. It's just the coaching on Dallas. This guy he's just not good. He doesn't know how to run a balanced offense. He doesn't conserve his timeouts. He's made a lot of mistakes in this early in the season. So and I'll tell you another coach who's in a lot of trouble right now is Quinn with Atlanta. I mean, to blow 2 games, I think he blew a 19-point lead and a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter the last 2 weeks. And now they got to go up against
Green Bay.
And their defense is no good. They can't hold the lead. And Ryan was terrible in the fourth quarter. He can't play 4 quarters.
Yeah, they need to write a book on how to lose games creatively because since that 28-3 Super Bowl loss, lead they had, they've been doing this consistently. And Quinn, I don't know how Quinn still has a job, but
well, last year he finished off very well. They went 6-2 and they won like 5 straight games on the road last year at the end of the year. So that saved them last year.
Well, he's going to have to do the same thing again this year if he wants to stay around. But there's a lot of coaching issues in the league.
He's not going to stay around because I think they will get rid of him when they get to their bye week. I think he's done enough this year to deserve to lose his job. How long can he stay there? It's terrible.
Quite frankly, I'm surprised he's still there. But even with the last year,
well, I told you why. Because last year they finished up very strong.
Now, the Chicago Bears made a coaching move last week when they changed quarterbacks and they went to Foles, and he came back and brought them back against Atlanta and beat Atlanta. What do you think of that move? Or was that overdue, in your opinion?
No. Trubisky earned the starting job. He was the incumbent, and he had a good camp. And remember, he won his first 2 games. But now that he's made that move, he can't go back. And the problem with that is that Foles, like a lot of guys who, make their bones by playing well as a backup, when he has a week to think about starting, they don't do too well. And that's why I don't like the Bears this week. They're going up against a very, very prolific defensive front. They're going to put pressure on him, and he's going to have trouble that he didn't have last week. Indianapolis has a very good defense. And I look for him to not play well this week. So now he's had a week to think about it. They're good when they come off the bench, and they have a lot of spark, and they get in there and they do well. And then the next week they revert to backup situation.
Good point. It's easier to do that. You don't have the pressure. And you come in there kind of free will. And he had a hell of a fourth quarter. There's a lot going on.
Well, he had a hell of a fourth quarter against a team that has a hell of a fourth quarter the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. New York has got one hell of a bad run in almost all sports right now.
The Yankees.
Well, the Yankees are good. They don't have the pitching is a problem, but they can sure put up runs. I mean, what they scored 22 runs in 2 days against the
whatever.
They can put up runs. We'll see how they do against the Tampa pitching, but this is going to be...
They're good team defensively, too.
Yes, they are. The Giants and the Jets, which is where I was going with that, both of these teams are just dumpster fires right now.
Well, you've got one team, the Giants, that couldn't get into the red zone last week. So, and their quarterback is a turnover machine. He's averaging like 3 a week.
Yeah.
So, and they don't have their running game is shot. Although I guess they signed Freeman this week, but still, they don't have a running game. Their offensive line is in shambles. So they're not going to win. And you got the Gates situation where he's going to be toast after this week. They don't have any receivers. They don't have any defense. Nobody wants to play for the guy. So both teams are a disaster.
Yeah, you're right. And it comes, you look at it, there might be 5 or 6 coaches that people are criticizing regularly, and a lot of it's warranted. Some of the coaches are doing it. What do you think of the coach for the Chargers? Some of the moves he makes, and you mentioned one of them earlier, very questionable.
Well, that was that one game. Outside of that, other coaches think he's pretty good. We'll see. I mean, remember they've been hurt by injuries. Their best defensive back is out. They're breaking in a rookie quarterback who the last 2 games has thrown for 300 yards. So somebody's coaching that guy.
No, he looked very promising. Here's a guy that wasn't getting first string snaps and ended up having to start a game because of a medical issue with their starting quarterback, and he's done a pretty good job. I mean, you expect rookies to make mistakes, and he has, but he shows a lot of potential. Speaking of rookies, first string draft choice or first number 1 draft choice, Burrow for Cincinnati has looked pretty good this year.
He's been good, and he's been not so good. They're okay. I like Burrow. I think he's going to be good. But they've got some issues on defense, and I don't think they're going anywhere this year.
Did you watch the switching gears here? Did you watch the Lakers and the Heat last night?
Yeah, it was very simple. If the Heat can't make their outside shots, they can't win. That's their game. And they had the Lakers were shooting like 60% from all over the court, and the Heat could not make a basket. They were ice cold. They'll win a couple of games in that series, once they get back on their shooting game. But they couldn't make They were shooting from areas where they usually make baskets that they couldn't make a one.
Yeah, they are. They are a very good outside shooting team, and last night was unusually cold. They did get some players banged up in that game.
They're all going to be okay.
Anything else you want to touch on, Hank, before we sign off for this week?
Yeah, the Preakness is Saturday. It's an interesting dynamic in the way, because of the way the schedule had to change. Andy Beyer wrote a very good column about this. The Preakness is probably the most competitive race of the Triple Crown series. You know, the Derby was not, and the Belmont certainly wasn't. But this is an 11-horse field, all quality horses. And it's an interesting race. And Andy's column was that this is a good example of why they should change the Triple Crown schedule and make it one race a month. Because where horsemen used to avoid the Preakness, a lot of them are in this race, and a lot of good horses are in here. This is of the 11 horses who are in here, any one of 6 or 7 have a chance to win. I could make a case for any one of 6 or 7 horses. The horse I like is Art Collector, number 3. He is the real deal. He has won his last 3 races, and among the races he won, he's won, I think, 3 in a row. And he has the right kind of running style. He's from just off the pace, and this is a race where there's a lot of speed. And he's in post 3, which is a great place to draw from in a race like this. And I think that he can beat these horses. And so I'm using him on top. He's 5-2. A horse who I think has a chance is Pneumatic. He's trained by Asmussen. Here's a horse who's younger, got a late start, and he's been a little up and down, but he's won a couple of races in a row, including the Pegasus Stakes at Monmouth. And New York Traffic. This is a horse I liked in the Derby, who was well placed in the Derby. He was running 3rd, and all of a sudden he stopped. And what happened was he threw a shoe, and he also had some lacerations in his leg when he came out of the race. Sophie, who's a real good trainer, wasn't sure he'd be ready for the Preakness, but they gave him a healing process that he was well treated for the cuts. And the cuts have gone away, and he's training well. And, you know, he ran 2nd in 3 straight races against top horses, and he should have won the Haskell. He caught Authentic at the wire, and if they had run 2 more steps, he would have been the winner. So you got him, Authentic, and Pneumatic. And, of course, Authentic is a horse you got to use, but he has some questions about his ability to run the distance. And, you know, he had a 3 or 4 length lead going into the stretch in the Haskell, and New York Traffic caught him at the wire. And it was a long photo. And it was a head bob that won the race for Authentic. So I'm using, and Baffert has a 2nd horse in there who you could use, who he likes, who's training well. So it's a deep field, but I like Art Collector to win it. So I'm going to use a 3, 10, 9, 7 box, 4-horse box, and I think it's hittable.
That's excellent, Hank. Thank you. I appreciate that information. That's awesome. You are definitely the voice of horse racing and sports, and we appreciate having you on here. Thank you. And
okay, Jim.
Have a good week. Good luck with everything, and we'll talk to you next week.
I like Houston baseball.
Yeah, who do they match up with next round?
Whoever, they're good. I mean, they crushed Minnesota. Minnesota had no chance against them.
You know that Minnesota hasn't won a playoff game in 18 games. They've lost 18 straight playoff games.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable. What a streak!
The Dodgers didn't exactly overwhelm Milwaukee yesterday.
No, They got the Kershaw against Woodruff today at 7 p.m. tonight. The big line, over 200. Kershaw's over 200.
Yeah, well, that's Kershaw. He gets that.
He always gets those prices.
Yep.
It's going to be great. Great weekend, Hank. Good luck. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, JimFeist.com for all Hank's picks, my picks, and great information throughout the week. We will talk to you again soon.